What is up, Internet? AJ here, and it's been a while. If you guys are subscribers to the channel already, then you probably realize that it looks a little bit different than it used to, and there's a good reason for that. A long time ago, I decided that I wanted to create a gaming channel that might actually be able to help people in one way or another, and I always had a kind of pull towards tabletop gaming. I'm a huge fan of D&D. Anybody who knows me knows that. Now, flash forward a little bit, and everybody seems to be finding themselves with a little bit more free time on their hands, and as such, a lot more people are delving into the world of D&D. So now is the perfect time. So that's where we are now. Kind of a reinvigoration to the channel, and some new ideas that I want to throw out there, and the creation of content that may actually be able to help new players and maybe even some old ones. Today marks the beginning of that journey with a video that I feel like is a good starting place for a lot of new players, and that is a list of things that are a good idea to keep in mind when you're running your D&D campaign. Now, this may be a list of things that'll help new players, and it could help some novice game runners as well, but it's still a pretty relevant list, so if you think it might actually help somebody you know, feel free to share it along. And before we get started, if you guys like what we're doing on the channel here, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon for notifications, and when we post new videos, we'll be posting 2 times a week here, both weekly videos and then also our stream from Twitch, which you can go over and check us out at www.twitch.tv/ajrpg. We play Halcyon Tales there every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So check it out there if you guys want to see some players just playing an average game. We've got players of all experience types there, so it's a good example of what you may be getting yourself into if you've never played before, or what you can expect from a casual game. But it is online, so keep that in mind. Your experiences may vary. Now, we're going to get into the video proper here, and the first thing that I want to cover is decide what type of game you want to play. Now, there's a few aspects of this that are pretty important to keep in mind, and the first one is the rule set. What kind of game do you want to play? Is it going to be D&D, Pathfinder, maybe World of Darkness? I know D&D and Pathfinder have some similarities in them, and it's not that uncommon to see, but there are some definite differences too. So picking a game early on and knowing what you're going to play, communicating that with your players, and learning that rule set is something that's going to just have you have a better base going forward. The next thing you want to cover is going to be the theme of the game. Is it going to be a happy, cheerful romp through the woods, or is it going to be maybe a little bit more of a darker gothic tone? Maybe you could even have it somewhere in between. But having the theme figured out of what your game is going to be will give you kind of a better idea of the story beats that are going to kind of come along. And if you're running the game, you're kind of the person in charge of that, to a degree. The last thing, as far as the type of game you want to play, is the setting. Now, is this going to be in a low magic world, or maybe high fantasy, or even science fiction? There are a few games out there that specifically apply to science fiction rules and fit into that setting very well. So picking the type of game as far as the rule set is really going to kind of help you dictate that too. But having a general idea of the type of game you want to play is going to help you decide on what rule set to use. Now, the second thing I want to cover is choosing your players carefully. You want to find players that are going to want to play in the same type of game that you actually want to run. And it's important to communicate with them about what your expectations for that game are, and you should probably find out theirs too. Remember, it's okay to not invite everybody to play in your game, and not everybody is going to want to play the same type of game that you do as well. And it's really going to become a hindrance if you are playing one type of game and your players are expecting a completely different type of game, whether it's the expectation of a different game from what you're running, or even what them and the other players individually want to play. This is a good way to kind of create conflict in the group that you just ultimately don't want, and may end up helping things fall apart. And this can come down to even just the way your players want to play characters. Something as simple as a group of good characters and having a player who wants to play an evil character. Trust me, not a good idea. Doesn't end well. Been there. That will bring us into our next kind of topic of discussion here, and that it's okay to set limitations, whether it's the limitations of their alignment or limitations on class. Ultimately, what this is going to do is help you have a little bit more control over the game that you're actually trying to run. And I'm not by any means saying you should have absolute control over the game. Sometimes when you don't have control is when the most interesting things happen. But it's important for you to make sure that you're doing things in a way that are going to keep you staying comfortable. When you're comfortable, you're going to be having more fun. And when you're having more fun, your players will be having more fun. Assuming they're not a bunch of murder hobos and you're not an evil DM who just likes killing their players. Now, overall, and our next topic here, this kind of applies to some of the earlier things, but it really applies to everything in general. It's brush up on your knowledge of the rule set that you're using. It's kind of important to know the rules, especially since you're going to be the person dictating what's going to happen. Now, obviously, your players are going to have a say in that too, but that only furthers necessity for you to have a good understanding of the rules. Your players are going to do things in the game, and it's going to be up to you to decide how those things play out or what they need to do to actually make those things happen. At the end of the day, all of the judgment calls are going to come down to your decision, and it's very hard to make a good decision when you don't know the rules well enough to actually be able to make those decisions. I chose that topic because it leads into a few other topics that are going to come along with it that apply to it directly, but they're all kind of smaller topics individually. And that leads into the next one being the rules as written are more just guidelines. Now, don't blow up at me in the comments here. I know how this sounds. You've got a ton of people out there that are all about the rules as written. The rules as written are here. They dictate everything. You must follow the rules. Except the rules are what you make them. Your definition of the rules as written is going to be what fuels your game. It's going to be what gives it direction. It's going to be what dictates how the game goes. Some people swear by the rule of cool, which for those uninitiated is the rule that, hey, if it's cool, then it flies. And to an extent, that's fine. But you do have to keep some structure in the game. Otherwise, it can go off the rails very hard. And it will, inevitably. It's definitely something that you're going to have to deal with. And you'll learn from it. It's going to be rough. And you're going to have sessions where you sit there going, what the hell happened? It's the nature of the game. And your players will ensure that it happens, I guarantee it. But don't try to sit there and lock them into the rules. In doing so, it can actually stifle their creativity. And possibly even yours. Sometimes you need to bend the rules a little bit to make something work out just the way you want it to. And maybe it's in something that's just going to be a huge surprise for your players that they end up loving. But don't feel locked into the rules as written. Let yourself have that creative freedom and let your players have that creative freedom. I promise you, you and your people will have a lot more fun. Speaking of rules, there are people out there that swear by having, the player's handbook, the Dungeon Master Guide, the Monster Manual, Volos, all the other additional side content when looking to run a game. And those things are great resources. But this brings me to my next subject, and that is all you really need to play the game, to run the game, is a player's handbook. Yeah, those other things are nice, but you don't need them. You've got your player's handbook, which has all the rules to play the game, which gives you the base knowledge of all the things that you will need to do to make decisions, what to make decisions about, what the technical rules are, and how to play the game. Everything you need is right there. Yeah, the Dungeon Master's Guide is going to give you a lot more technical stuff as far as world building, that sort of thing. Monster Manual will give you stat blocks for the creatures to throw at your players. But all of that stuff can be figured out from the player's handbook, minus some of the world creation stuff. Once you've seen a stat block, you have an idea of where to go from there. And don't be afraid to reskin things that you see online or whatever. There's a ton of resources out there that you don't necessarily need to spend money on. So don't. So, now that you know the rules, now's a good time to figure out what happens when things don't go according to plan. And what I mean by this is emphasize to your players that it's okay to fail in the game. Now, what I mean by that is dice rolls don't always go as planned. Anybody who's played the game knows that for sure. And this can apply to newer players, but sometimes you got to remind the older players too. Failing a dice roll can most definitely lead to a poor situation, but it can lead to a much more interesting situation. As a DM, what you kind of have to sit there and think about is what are the creative consequences to your players failing a dice roll in any given specific situation? Now, there's a lot of different creative ways that things can go wrong when a player fails, but make sure you're keeping it interesting. Put some consideration into it. And if it's a situation where you don't necessarily want your players to fail, another option might be to consider degrees of success or degrees of failure. Sometimes they have to make multiple checks along the way in doing something. Multiple failures or multiple successes could lead to different outcomes. Failing in one spot could lead you down a different path. Now, I'm not saying go down a whole rabbit hole here. This could get very complicated very fast if you start to delve into it too much. But sit there and think about things on the fly. Think about what the logical outcomes of failing in specific situations are and go from there. Understandably, you may not always want your players to fail, or you may want the odds to be stacked in their favor. And that's where degrees of success and degrees of failure really kind of become useful there. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is if you don't want them to fail, don't necessarily give them the option. If it's something that they'll be able to do, you may not even need to make them roll dice for it. Just some food for thought. I know this all sounds like a lot, and it can be a lot. And a lot of your inspiration for getting into the game probably came from watching somebody else. And there's a couple other specific influences out there that really tend to skew people's opinion and their ideas of what they want to do for a game of D&D. And my next topic is to just not be like those people. Don't try to be the next Matt Mercer or Matt Colville. These guys have years and years of experience. They've been doing this for literal decades. And they've seen a thing or two. They know the rules. They know them in and out. They've done creative writing on these games, on these topics. They know more than you could probably hope to learn within the next couple of years of running a game on your own, even through experience. They've been there. They've done it. And because of that, they're going to have different ways of doing things and different ways of solving problems because they've already come across them. You don't have that luxury. You haven't been through a lot of these things. You haven't seen a lot of these problems, and you're going to be winging it a lot early on. Don't try to be the kind of game master that they are. Don't try to do all the things that they do. Yes, it's fine. Take some inspiration from them. They've got a ton of great ideas. But start small. Don't overload yourself because that's inevitably what will happen. And if you try to focus on being too much like them, when you come to the realization that you're not, you might just end up disappointed. At the end of the day, all you can really do is run the game the best that you can. So find your own style. When you got the right players backing you, they're going to help you find your style. And maybe you'll help them find theirs. Back to the Matt Mercer thing. There's a ton of videos out there saying, don't fall for the Matt Mercer effect. Don't be Matt Mercer. Blah, 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 blah. And the next topic I want to cover is you don't need to do voices to be a good DM. He is a literal professional voice actor. You probably are not. Don't feel obligated to do voices in your game. Do what is most comfortable. If you want to try it out, by all means, go for it. Have fun. And hopefully your players will be supportive about it and not give you too hard of a time. Maybe they'll get along and go for it with you. But if it's not something you're comfortable with, don't try to force yourself to do it. It's going to take you outside of your comfort zone, probably far beyond what you really want to go. And it might actually negatively impact the game. It might impact your view on the game. It might impact the way you're running the game. And it's just not necessary. There's people out there that'll swear by voice acting and doing silly voice and stuff like that, and it can be a fun thing, sure. But at the end of the day, it's your job to keep the game going, keep the game functioning, keep the game progressing. Having silly voices in it isn't going to make that happen one way or another. So if you want to do it, practice it outside the game. Practice it by yourself, maybe run it by some friends. But don't try to force yourself to do it. You probably just won't have any fun with it if it has to be forced. Now, all of that comes to this next thing, including the voices, and that is be ready to improv. Now, improv is a very small term for a very broad subject. When it comes to improv, the things that you will be improving are interaction with characters, possibly voices, decide to go that route, and then everything else when your players inevitably go off the rails and do something completely different than what you anticipated that they were going to do in the first place. Yeah, that'll happen a lot. You're going to have to practice doing a lot of things. Improv is one of the things you can practice outside of the game that's going to help you more than anything inside the game. Things will change on the fly so much. The direction your characters are going, the things they want to do with their character backstories, even just their interaction with NPCs that you create. Every encounter with a new character is going to be a conversation that you have to make up on the fly from your NPC's perspective. So, practice. Improving is probably one of the most important points that I can make in this entire video about what's important to remember. You will not play a session that does not include some sort of improv, ever. And this doesn't even necessarily apply just to DMs. For the characters too, this is a super important point that you're all going to have to do, one way or another. It's going to happen. So, that's where we're going to wrap up the video today, guys. I hope I was able to help somebody out there. That's the whole point of this video. If you know somebody that the video might help, go ahead and share it with them. Send it along to them, see what they think. And if you like what we're doing here, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon for notifications of when we post new videos. Like I said, I'll be posting hopefully 2 videos a week here, both these topical conversations as well as the live streams from over at our Twitch channel. You can check us out every Wednesday night at 6:30 Central Standard Time over at www.twitch.tv/AJRPG. We're running a game called Halcyon Tales, Knights of Ash. Come check us out. Like I said, we've got players of all experience levels there, so maybe you can learn a thing or two. And if nothing else, come hang out in the chat and get to know us a little bit better. In the meantime, hope you guys are having a great week, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Happy gaming!